all of government approach to pushing DEI and critical race theory by the Biden administration. It is their number one priority. And I don't say that because I'm criticizing them. It's because they say that it's their number one priority. We found out through a whistleblower that IRS criminal investigators were subjected to some crazed propaganda program under DEI. Now, one of the big fights in Washington these days is the $80 billion in extra dollars that Biden rammed through Congress and the efforts by Republicans and conservatives to try to claw some of that back. Well, now we know where some of this money is being spent, which is subjecting investigators in the IRS to woke training. Federal agents, and we found this is in our Corruption Chronicles blog. I encourage you, in addition to watching yours truly here on wherever you're watching me, and my colleague Chris Farrell and all our other videos, we've got a great website that has a series that has some great reporting on it through our Corruption Chronicles blog and our investigative bulletin. And so there are stories there you won't read in any other media. They're exclusive to Judicial Watch in terms of exposing what's going on in government corruption. And I don't often get to them here on our weekly update because I focus on our big general press releases and these big stories out there. But I encourage you to go to our website and track our product, right? Our educational product on what the government's up to. So in this case, the Judicial Watch received through a whistleblower copies of the material that was used in this DEI workshop. And federal agents, and this is how we open it up. We'll get to that later. Federal agents charged with investigating money laundering, public corruption, counterterrorism, and narcotics trafficking at the Internal Revenue Service were pulled from their critical duties to endure woke training that directs them to operate in a culturally inclusive environment and speak up for multiple social identities. The drills focused on equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice, and instructed agents from the specialized IRS Criminal Investigation Unit to question how much they know about different cultural norms and mores and challenge them with the following inquiries. Are you prepared to adequately to accommodate different cultural expectations and practices? Can you deliver cultural inclusion behaviorally? The course's introduction, titled Cultural Inclusion is About Justice, was provided by a black transgender professor who asserts in an academic article that the high impact of, quote, whiteness oppresses trans college students. What is going on? And this isn't like something, people like say, oh, this is crazy. And to me, it is corrupt. It is illegal. I want you to see the first, now let's put up the first slide that our whistleblower gave us there. So this is what they're talking about. Cultural inclusion is about justice. Equity doesn't mean equity in the old-fashioned sense of the word. Equity means communism. Whose culture is trying to get in the room but can't? Now, culture is a code word here for race. I mean, they're not talking about French culture. They're talking about racial cultures. So they know, they're smart enough to know they don't want to say whose race is trying to get in the room but can't. How has everybody's culture been heard? Whose culture is not being taken seriously? What are we talking about here? We're all Americans. Look at this justice line. Whose cultural safety is being sacrificed to allow the dominant culture to degrade the subordinate culture? That's all racialism. Is this cultural under inclusion, diversity, inclusion, equity? See, DEI. Is this cultural environment safe to make people feel that they belong? Oh, they're Americans. Let's go to the next slide. See what's there to make me angry. What are your cultural behaviors, values, biases, preconceived notions, and personal limitations? Tell us how your race impacts you, makes you a terrible person. That's what they're saying, and it's not directed at minorities, it's directed at what they call the dominant culture, whites. With your culturally different customers, colleagues, what does that mean? I mean, if they're talking about I'm an IRS investigator and you are working in the immigrant community, I mean, I think there should be some training about some sensitivities there. That's not objectionable. Let's say you go into a community that's largely, many of the individuals there speak English as a second language. I mean, I wouldn't know necessarily some tricks of the trade in terms of understanding their approach to the IRS and whatever issue. So, I mean, to me, that's not a big deal. Here they mean race when they talk about culturally different customers and colleagues. They're not talking about like a language difference or a bunch of Frenchmen living in northern Vermont or ethnic French Americans in northern Vermont. You know what I mean. This is crazy town. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, this one got me great. Are you culturally intelligent? Read that to mean, are you racially intelligent? How interesting or relevant is it for you to operate in a culturally inclusive environment? What does that mean? How much do you know about different cultural norms and mores? Again, what does that mean? We're supposed to treat fellow Americans like they're children and we have to walk around because they somehow think differently and operate differently than the dominant culture? What really troubles me about this Marxist approach, this racial separatist approach is, and frankly it should trouble minorities, is that it treats minorities like children that need to be mollycoddled, right? That there's no assumption that they're Americans too, and we're just going to work together in our jobs. They're treated by race first, and the left refuses to move past that. And to the degree that race becomes the number one issue in hiring, firing, or the operations of an organization, a business organization, that's contrary to law. It's discriminatory. Can you deliver cultural inclusion behaviorally? What does that mean? And I know what it means. It means communism. It means Marxism. It means treating the people according to their race rather than based on merit and their contributions to the cause of the organization or the mission of the organization. And what does this have to do with IRS criminal investigations? I don't know if I can take many more slides like this, but you get the picture. Let's go to the next one. Just when I think it can't get worse, it gets worse. Look at this first one. You can make an individual mistake without it being attached to your culture. So if you make a mistake, is it going to, it's because you're white or black? I mean, what's going on here? You represent your race? I mean, this is like South Africa during apartheid. This is what the left has embraced. This is the apartheid way of governing and operating in our institutions. Let's go to the next one, see what's there. Oh, this is the way they treat minorities. They are kind of encouraging minorities to pretend that they're being abused and having to hide their culture. What does that mean? Try to blend in with the dominant culture. What is the dominant culture? And as we further report, a source connected to the Washington, D.C., this is mandatory, by the way. What I showed you is mandatory. I mean, I'm outraged just having to read it as a citizen, knowing taxpayer money is being used to abuse IRS government employees with this. But imagine having to do this as part of your job. Your salary depends on it. Your job depends on it. No American should be put in that situation. Mandatory continuing professional education for all staff. That's what that system, those slides were part of, that DEI program. Source connected to the Washington, D.C. field office provided slides from the specific presentation in that division, which has dozens of agents that investigate crimes throughout the capital area, including Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia. So in many ways, this is kind of what our IRS is doing. Rather than being allowed to investigate Hunter and Joe and their racketeering, they're going through DEI training. Federal agents, as well as a special agent in charge of the DE office, work on high-profile probes involving bribery, embezzlement, illegal kickbacks, and dismantling major drug and money laundering organizations. And they were obviously reluctant, according to our reporting, to be yanked from their important work to participate in the woke training. They want us to consider people's race, said a veteran investigator. Criminals don't discriminate. White-collar criminals are mostly what we go after here in the IRS investigative unit. And they are a diverse bunch. His point was, you want diversity, look at the targets of our investigation. They come from all parts of the world and have all sorts of diverse characteristics. And of course, this is all as a result of the all-of-government approach to pushing DEI and critical race theory by the Biden administration. It is their number one priority. And I don't say that because I'm criticizing them. It's because they say that it's their number one priority. It is a priority for other agencies to consider equity, diversity, and inclusion in everything they do. You start going on to the, I just encourage you, just pick one agency and just go down the rabbit hole. Just go pick a website of EPA, HHS, you name it, CIA, State Department, and just start going into their diversity sections, and you'll see what I mean. They're all doing it, especially in our military. We've highlighted how they're abusing our poor rising leadership trainees in our national military academies. And of course, once you're in the military full time, they make you go through these trainings as well. So this is an important story. I hope Congress starts paying attention to this, stops funding it. But you can trust your Judicial Watch to get to the truth of the matter on these abuses of government power and the assault on the rule of law. It's one thing to have a bunch of criminals running around. It's another thing to have your government acting in a way that's outside the law. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.